Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 4, Episode 3 of HBO's Succession, entitled Connor's Wedding. I want to talk about this episode title up front because if you guys have been following this channel for a while, you know I talk about episode titles in general, but I really like to focus on Succession's episode titles because they put a lot of thought and effort into them. You know, I've sat here and I've read from like fucking poems and shit to help explain to you guys why a Succession episode is titled the way it is. So with this one being called Connor's Wedding, it's like super plain, and you would think like, okay, that's a little out of the norm for this show. But like when I saw that, I before we even started, I turned to my wife and I said, you know, this episode is gonna be special because they usually give these complicated names where like if you don't really pay attention to an episode or you're not looking for the reason why it's named the way it is, you're not gonna find it. Most people don't even give a fuck about why an episode title is named the way it is. But if you are one of those people, you're accustomed to this show's episode titles either being difficult to interpret or impossible to interpret. Maybe you come to me to find out why they name it the way they do. And I looked at this and I said, Connor's Wedding, that's so plain. But then I thought, if you're talking about this show in the future and you want to cite specific moments that like really had an impact on you, it makes it easy if you have an episode title with a very easy to remember name, like Connor's Wedding. Like everyone, now people will be able to think about this episode and think about Logan's death, and they're gonna discuss it and they'll be like, yeah, you know, Connor's Wedding though, you know, like the same way we just say the Red Wedding for like Game of Thrones. Like this will be like the Connor's Wedding episode. And they gave it a very easy to remember, simple title that will allow people to easily refer to this episode in the future when they're talking about great moments in television or pivotal moments in television or pivotal moments on this show. People can just go Connor's Wedding. And I thought when I saw that, that was my thought turned to my wife, and I was like, I laid that out for her, and I'm like, that means you know something special is going to happen because I bet you they want this to be a episode that we can easily cite by name and everyone's going to know what we're talking about. So even starting with a simple title like that, you could tell the show had something special planned. So let's talk about this episode. And really, I mean, honestly, there's not a lot that happens as far as like, when I say not a lot, I mean in quantity. Like there's not a bunch of things that happen. Like we spend maybe 10, 15 minutes on setting up what we thought this episode was supposed to be about, and then they throw the monkey wrench in with Logan and we just go off from there. So like really when I say that not a lot happened event-wise, obviously something monumental happened, but it was just that one thing. Like really all we need to talk about here is not just Logan's death, and not even necessarily how it impacts the show or how it's going to impact the show going forward. I'm not even really that interested in that. I'm interested in how it's going to impact the show going forward. But what I really want to talk about and focus on, if you're a fan of this channel, you already fucking know what I'm going to say. I want to talk about why it worked. And that is the thing that this show does great, and why I love to get on here and talk about this show, because this show always does really cool shit, and I feel like most people don't understand or don't even really look to see, like, or think about, like, why did I think that was so cool? And this show does a lot of cool shit that I think is kind of like not super obvious. So I like getting on here and going, you know how you felt in this moment, in this scene? Let me explain to you what I think they did, because I don't want to say what they did, because again, I'm not involved. I'm no fucking genius when it comes to this shit. I just watch it and talk about it. But why I think certain decisions were made that had an impact on how we take in the episode and how it makes us feel. So like, that's the kind of stuff that I find really interesting about this show. So that's what I want to talk about as it pertains to talking about this episode and this monumental moment of killing off Logan Roy. I want to talk about why it worked. So I want to start with just the sheer size of the balls it takes to do something this monumental at this point in the season. Like, 3 episodes into a 10-episode season, none of us are sitting here expecting something of this magnitude to happen. Like, no one was coming into this one going, what if Logan dies in this one? That'd be crazy, right? So since no one's even thinking about or expecting that, for one, you gain the element of surprise, which is pretty obvious up front, right? But they already set very real and serious stakes for this episode that I was fully prepared and excited for them to tackle. Like, I laid it out to my wife before we even started, like, just so you know, just so you remember, this is what's happened so far, and this is what they kind of laid out as the stakes for this episode. So just like Logan's situation made it sound like he like overdrafted at the bank. Logan's very, very permanent situation threw a monkey wrench, just like that threw a monkey wrench into the kids' plans, it threw a monkey wrench into the audience's expectations as well. And I thought that was super fucking cool. And then secondly, adding to the massive balls it takes to do this, you've now changed the show entirely. Like, everything they set up in these first 2 episodes is not only like kind of mostly pointless, not entirely, but mostly pointless, but it feels like the primary purpose of the first 2 episodes was to get us to let our guard down for this. Like, so that way we could come into this episode like, okay, this is what's gonna happen here. This is what I expect. We're in for a ride, because there's a whole lot of important shit that's happening in this episode, and they completely veer to a completely different way, and that allowed us to kind of like really it allowed the moment to have a bigger impact on us, because it's just a shock, as much of a shock to us watching as it is to the kids within the show, because we all had this expectation of what this day was supposed to be like. The characters knew, like, we got Connor's wedding going on, we got this situation with Gojo and Mattson, like, and I knew that coming in. You guys knew that coming in, because I laid it out for you last week when I talked about what happened in that episode. So we all collectively had an expectation of what was supposed to happen, and for them to make this diversion like this, to make this hard left turn and do something different, they suckered all of us, because we all bought everything they laid out in the first 2 with the full expectation of that playing out in this episode, and they went and did something completely different, and that increased the shock factor, I think. It was really brilliant. You know, they set it up to where I came into the episode hyper aware of the stakes, already feeling like this was going to be a great episode. Like, okay, we got Connor's wedding, which I already know is going to be a shit show. Then we're supposed to have this board meeting to vote on the Gojo sale, which Logan delayed because he's going to go meet with Mattson in person, and he wants Roman to come with him. So I'm thinking, like, okay, we got the Connor thing, the wedding, which I know is going to be crazy, meeting with Mattson and the board vote, all this pivotal shit that's supposed to happen in this episode. And they start right away with having Roman and Logan on the phone discussing the meeting with Mattson, and also the firing of Jerry, which we're going to be talking, which I'm going to spend probably more time talking about than you would expect coming into this video. But then they pull the rug out from under us with the Logan situation. I got to stop saying Logan situation. I don't like how temporary and insignificant that makes it sound. Death is not a situation. But now everything that felt important no longer matters, and now we're into why the show is called Succession, right? Because who's going to take over for Logan? What's going to happen with everything now that this has changed the game entirely? Like, now we really are going to get into the matter of succession, and I find that really interesting. And just like the business world waits for no one, neither did the show. while Logan's body is still very much warm, you could see the kids kind of already start shifting. And it's subtle how they do it. But again, that's why this show is so brilliant. While pushing through tears and this devastation and this confusion and this acceptance, they still kind of start to shift into like, from like, I can't believe dad is dying, oh no, to like, so what's the next move and how do we make sure that we're out in front of it and we're the face of it? Like the way they kind of transition from like, I'm mourning, but we also got to handle this business shit. Like I thought it was really slick how they transitioned a lot of the characters and at different times, like it's staggered, right? Like Shiv felt like she kind of moved into business mode right away, whereas like Roman obviously never gets there, like until like the very end. So like, or Carolina, for instance, pops right into business mode. They give, I think it was like, I think there's a moment where I think they kind of give Frank shit, and Frank's deserving of the shit in the moment, but he also points out like, I've known the man for 40 years and he's 12 feet away from me. Back the fuck off, kind of like, and that I thought that was cool too. And you know, take the drafting of the statement, for example, that how the kids didn't want Carolina, Frank, Carl to be the primary drafters of the statement, them like, we're mourning, but we also like, we don't want them handling the statement, right? You know, like how they can't fully just mourn their father. They're obligated to handle the business side of things, but also I think the show wants us to understand it's not purely out of obligation. Like there is still a part of them that's who they are. These people are shitty people. They're not gonna take the time to fully mourn their father. But they're gonna be like texting on the side and shit. Or take how Shiv suggested the plane kind of circle around until they figure their shit out. Roman's like, what the fuck? Like that's why I said Shiv warmed up to getting into the business shit a little bit quicker than everyone else. Even if like that's a really rough thing to even suggest, like in that moment, like that was crazy. But you know, the show itself again didn't even wait until the next episode to start tackling the question of what's next, because just like the characters don't have the luxury of waiting, neither does the show. So it's like I think the coolest thing about this episode was how the audience should be, if they're doing their job, and I think this is what they were going for. The audience should be having the same experience as the kids, you know. So, you know, to be clear on what should be happening going forward, what happens? Like, there's some of the questions. Okay, what happens with Matsson now? How does Logan's death impact his desire to buy Waystar Royco? Like, like what's gonna happen with that in Matsson? What happens with the board vote on the sale? Is it no longer necessary? Is the sale off altogether? I mean, so many questions, right? If the sale's not off, with Logan no longer being a factor, do the kids change their position now? Because when the position was, if we team up with Stewie and Lisa Kudrow, like, I don't know why I can't remember her name. If we team up with Stewie and Lisa Kudrow, now we can throw a monkey wrench in Dad's plan to sell Waystar Royco, but now he's dead. So like, the motivation to throw a monkey wrench in his plan is gone. So now do they change it? If the sale is still going on, do they have a different stance now? Like, are they gonna be cool with accepting the money that Matsson was offering if Matsson is still willing to offer that? Like, so many questions. What happens with Logan's plans? He intended on firing Sid and not giving Carrie an anchor job. Does Sid still get fired? Does Carrie still not get an anchor job? Maybe she does. I kind of assumed Logan wanted to make Roman the face of ATN, but he never vocalized that to anyone, and Roman was keeping their little conversation secret. So even if that was something that he vocalized to Roman, like off camera or whatever, we don't know about it, and no one else knows about it, and he's too dead to confirm it. So who's gonna be the face of ATN if they actually do still go through with firing Sid? Is it gonna like are they gonna change it to Roman? Is it gonna be someone else? Are they gonna keep Sid since he was the one that was adamant about firing her, and he sounded like he was gonna be the one to do it? So like, just so many questions. Let's talk about Jerry though, real quick. I said I wanted to talk about Jerry. Logan was very adamant about firing Jerry and having it done quickly, and I posed a question last week, like, why was he so adamant about her not coming to meet with Matsson? And I think, you know, someone in the comments I think suggested it was because of the dick pics, and then I think this episode does kind of confirm that the dick pics were a lot more important to Logan than I thought that they were. But He pressures Roman into firing Jerry and doing it quickly, and he does. It goes very poorly, but now Logan's generally vague way of wording things that he wants done, it can now come back to really bite Roman in the ass. So you might be thinking like, how? Well, let's talk about it. So Logan says he wants to give Jerry a heads up about that's what he wants. I'm sorry, he wants Roman to give Jerry a heads up on what was. Again, he doesn't verbalize it like I want you to fire her, or even like the end result is firing her and I want you to give her a heads up. It's all implied, but he wants him to do it. But he doesn't say that. He says, I want you to give her a heads up, which kind of sounds like I want you to give her a warning and then someone else is going to do it later. And Roman doesn't want to do it, and we all know the situation that he has with Jerry. Logan knows the situation that he has with Jerry. All of that is unspoken here in this conversation. So when Roman does actually do the firing, he kind of frames it in the way that Logan worded it, even though I'm sure Logan wanted it to be, you are fired. And give her a heads up was just his way of saying it without saying it. But then Roman actually does just give her a heads up. Kind of like, he even uses the phrase, like, it's just a heads up. And I think, too, from Roman's perspective, he doesn't want to fire her. He likes Jerry. Also of note, everyone knew of Logan's intention to fire Jerry because he vocalized it as like a foregone conclusion to everyone before Roman had actually done it. So like they already know that Jerry is supposed to be fired and fired by Roman. And I'm bringing all this up for one reason. Jerry just got fired by the guy who sent her dick pics, and Logan Roy is now dead. So think of the leverage that she now has. Jerry could step all the way into this, my aforementioned, like now you can get into the topic of succession on this show. Jerry can fully insert herself into that conversation. And remember, she was already a big player in that conversation in previous seasons, because now she can essentially blackmail Roman to a degree with the boss's son just fired me because I wouldn't give him no pussy. And it's like, no, you can't prove that. Like on some sexual harassment shit, you can't prove that. But we know she was a willing participant in this whole situation with Roman. But because part of the kink involved like debasing Roman, any evidence that might potentially exist that would make it look like that maybe Roman might want to present as proof that she was a willing participant in what was happening for them is probably still going to look like harassment, because the kink is her saying how she doesn't want to do it. So it's like, he sent her dick pics, and while I haven't gone through the entire history of text messages between Roman and Jerry except on the show, I'd imagine that anything that exists in that regard will look like she's rejecting his advances, because that's what the kink is. So it's like, it feels like with Logan not there to say, I want Jerry fired, and Logan having not verbalized his desire, well, he's verbalized it, but like, he hasn't verbalized it widely. Like, I think obviously Roman knows, and I think he told Carolina and Frank, maybe, I think were there. He mentioned it, but Jerry can still very now be in a position where, even though she knows the true nature of her interactions with Roman, all the like sexual stuff, she could use that as leverage to kind of like blackmail him. Like, this is gonna look really fucking bad for you and make it look like some sexual harassment shit, and you fired me for that. She could use that as leverage, like, okay, I'm gonna make this public, or I'm in charge of Waystar Royco. Interesting play, right? Or interesting set of circumstances that they've set up. So that's just another way in which this decision to kill off Logan at this point in the season has completely changed the path of all of these characters. But let's get back to talking about why the episode works so well. I spent all this time so far talking about how they changed the game so dramatically by having something this monumental happen this early on in the season. The next thing I want to talk about is how great of a job they did, and I've mentioned this already too, making us feel like the audience, making us feel the same as the characters as this story plays out. So, they laid groundwork for an expectation coming into the episode, an expectation of I expect a meeting with Madsen, and I expect a wild-ass wedding for Connor. And this episode did a great job of showcasing how the reality of, like, death can come at any time, unexpectedly, and it doesn't give a fuck about your plans or what you intended on doing that day. And I really felt that feeling throughout a large chunk of this sequence of what happens. Post Shiv's Tom's missed calls to Shiv, everything from that point on, that feeling of like death can come at any time unexpectedly, and it doesn't care about your plans, and how jarring it can be to get that kind of news when you're not expecting it. Like, say if you have a relative in hospice, you're expecting to get that news at any moment. If you have a relative that you're flying out to Sweden with to hold a business meeting that's surrounding the biggest transaction of your life, you're probably not expecting that person to up and die in the middle of that. And, starting from Tom calling Shiv and her not answering, we as the viewer are moving like lockstep along with the characters in this state of wait, what is even happening right now? Like, is it like it transitioning from that into this kind of like realm of like acceptance and of like, now what? So like you have Tom delivering this news in the way that you would kind of expect Tom to deliver it. Like there's this reluctant, I have something earth-shattering to say, but since I'm Tom and I'm talking to Roman, I don't really know how to verbalize it. I don't really know, because it makes it weird. It makes it extra weird with Roman. Like if Shiv had picked up the phone, that would have worked out way better for Tom. He could talk to his wife, who he knows well, and he can relay that information. She can relay it to her brothers, and it works. Whereas now he's talking to Roman, who he doesn't have a great relationship with, and who he also knows is the one who, if he's anything like me, who understands these characters completely. He also understands that Roman's going to take this news the hardest. So, like, he's got to deal with that, this, like, reluctance of not wanting to really convey the gravity of the situation because of who he's talking to. I thought that was interesting. They got Tom's phone breaking up, like, because it's realistic, right? Because he's on a plane. But that made it even worse, right? That made it weird, because he's like, you couple that with him not quite getting to the point. And like, there's these several times where he's like, Logan is not okay, or this is serious. But then he constantly stops short of, I think he's dead. And so because he keeps stopping short of that, because his phone keeps breaking up, because of the suddenness of it, just like the characters are sitting there like, what is it? What are you even saying, Tom? What's happening? That's what I was doing. I'm sitting there like, what is even happening right now? Like, what are you talking about, Tom? Like this level of like, what are you trying to say to me? Like, I'm sitting there as the viewer feeling that. And that to me was the absolute coolest thing about this episode. Was I felt like I was experiencing, like in reality, experiencing what these characters are feeling. This, I don't know, like, what are you even talking about? What's going on? To this acceptance, to the what's next, like the whole journey that the kids went on from the moment Roman answers the phone and to the end of the episode. I felt like the only difference between their experience and mine is that I don't love Logan Roy because he's not my father. So I'm not broken up about it. Everything else kind of felt the same. I felt like I was experiencing everything. And I thought that was so fucking cool. Then, another thing that's cool about this, I don't know about you guys, but we got really fucking far into this whole sequence before I even accepted the fact that something was wrong with Logan and that this wasn't a play by Logan to fuck with the kids. Like, how crazy is that you are in the middle of Tom telling these kids, your father is dying, and I'm sitting there like, are you fucking with them though? and really like feeling like Logan, like this, I could see Logan doing this, like, tell them I'm dying so they can do the deal. Like, I'm gonna fuck off and do it. Like, I could see him doing that. So I'm sitting here this whole time like, is this a play? Is this a move? Like, like that's crazy. That like they've made us know these characters that well that I legit was sitting there like, I don't know if he's for real or not. Like Tom might be fucking with them. And I think we're meant to feel that, right? Like I said, we already had an expectation of what was supposed to happen. So this felt off. Like it felt like okay, this isn't what's supposed to happen. So like, I'm suspicious of you right now, Tom. Like, yeah, sure, Logan, you had a medical emergency at an incredibly pivotal time. How convenient. Like, that's what it felt like. So, and then they kept not showing him. Like, that's what made it even weirder. Like, even once it did become clear, just that, like not even how grave the situation was, but just that it was grave, and that Tom wasn't fucking around, I feel like they purposely still waited to show Logan just because that is what kept me from being 100% sure that this was not a play. Like, I was suspicious the whole time. Like, even when, like, I really felt like, okay, they are definitely trying to convey, Tom is definitely trying to convey to Roman that Logan is dying or dead, and you might want to get your last words in. He's definitely conveying that. But because they had not showed the body, I still was sitting there like, I don't know. This might be a move. I don't know. But that made the scene even heavier because just like the characters slowly came to the realization of what was happening, so did I, like right along with them. And it got to the point where I'm sitting there like in disbelief. I might even, I don't know if I'm gonna do it now. I might try to like take a screenshot of the notes that I take when I'm watching an episode just to show you how discombobulated my notes got. Like, my notes are like, wait, what? Wait, what is in my notes? Like, wait, what? What's happening right now? Oh my, like, wait, is this for real? Like, the reactions that I'm sure we all had, my notes even have that level of like unpredictability. Like, yeah, now Tom's on the phone. Whatever, Tom. Wait, like, what are you saying, Tom? Like, is this happening? Like that transition is in my, like, I might try to see if I can put it here as a screenshot so you guys can see. But like that level of confusion and that transition into the acceptance and the realization was super fucking cool too. But again, talking about why this kind of shit works, it works because they've done the work with the characters. Like, it's wild to wonder if someone is faking their death as a play or as a strategic move, but I did that because they made me believe that Logan Roy is the kind of character who would stoop to some kind of shit like that. So like, it works because like they have fleshed these characters out to a point where I know them so well that I know what they're saying out loud versus what they really feel on the inside. These are make-believe characters, and I understand when they are bullshitting me verbally and mean something else, with it on the inside. Like, I know them that well that I can read what they're saying when it's completely the opposite of what's actually coming out of their mouth. Like, I can like what I talked about with the karaoke scene last week, how everyone was saying something different than what we know them to actually be believing. And that's how well we know these characters. And when you know these characters that well, you can sit there and go and have this experience where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, Tom. Sure, Logan's having an issue right now. Sure. You're just trying to throw them off their game. Wait, he's what? Like, what about his heart? Huh? Is this for real? No, Logan, you piece of shit. You're doing this on purpose to fuck with them. Like, and that doesn't work unless you intimately know these characters. And we do, and that's what made that so fucking cool. They made me believe he could convince Tom to bullshit to his wife about her father dying. Like, how crazy is that? But they made me believe this. Like, I believe that Tom would do that. Like, that Tom would be that bullied by Logan, or he would yearn that much for Logan's acceptance that he would lie to his wife about her father dying to curry favor with Logan. Like, I believe that about Tom. They made me believe that he would do that, and it would serve the dual purpose of sucking up to Logan and getting a little bit of revenge on Shiv. So like, they did a lot of work to get me to be just as hesitant to accept this news as the kids were. And that's why this shit fucking worked. Then they also didn't show Logan's body. They have Tom struggle to even verbalize that he's dying. And it all works so well because they took a ridiculous amount of time to convince me, just like it did to convince the kids, that all this was really happening for real. And that just made the experience of watching this episode so much more rewarding, because they could have just had a Logan Roy death scene, but they fucked with us for a really long time, and they were able to do that because of all the work that they've done up to this point. I thought it was great. Another quick example of this and why Tom struggled to convey the news worked so well was Tom's unwillingness to just flat out say what was happening. Made those rare moments where he kind of sort of did, it made those moments real fucking chilling. Like when he finally works his way around to saying that they should talk to him, and that I could put the phone by his ear and you guys could talk to him. Like, I'm still very much in a space of, at this moment, what is Tom even talking about right now? Is this for real? But when he said that, I'm like, wait, is he telling them to like, is this like a last words situation? Like, talk, like this is the last thing like you could have to say to him. He could probably maybe hear you. So if you say something, it could be the last thing he hears before he dies. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like that's not, obviously that's not what Tom said, but like him saying that, like the whole thing about suggesting that they talk into his ear, that helped me go like, wait a minute, is this for real? Like, is this happening right now? Like, is it like, are you telling, has this escalated? Because it kind of felt like, okay, hey, something's wrong with Logan. All right, something's been wrong with Logan before. I'm not taking it seriously yet. But then when he said that, I'm like, wait, did he just tell them to like, get your last words in? Like, what is happening right now? And that constant state of disbelief with every now and then getting a slight escalation, it was wild. It was a wild experience. It was like, wait, is this for real? To, wait, is this serious? To, wait, is he dying? like that, I don't know. It was just crazy. Is this for real? Is this show really killing off Logan Roy in episode 3? Is this happening? It was crazy. And this went from feeling like he may have had a minor situation to he's dying right now and you need to get your last words in with him right now on this phone call. Like, that was just a colossal all-time escalation of events that should be pictured next to that escalated quickly in Urban Dictionary. Because I've said it 20 times already in this video. I can't get over how we transitioned from, shut the fuck up, Tom, quit fucking with us. What are you even talking about? And how that journey to transitioning to what ended up happening and getting there was an incredible journey. And then lastly, you also have some really important moments once it becomes clear what's happening and after Logan is dead. So like after this is all played out, or not even after it's all played out, but once it's very clear and obvious that this is happening, there's a lot of interesting things that happen after that. So I've already talked about how the kids reluctantly but necessarily started moving into business mode. Like, how do we control the narrative and what happens next? But there are some interesting individual moments as well with like individual people, like Kendall. Kendall said that Kendall, when he gets the phone, he says he said he couldn't forgive him, which I thought that was a wild thing to say. But then he begins to cope by he goes into business mode. You know how Kendall gets when he's into business mode. It just sounds like a whole bunch of businessy type words and shit. And he's on the phone. He's making demands. Like, I want to speak to the pilot. Why, Kendall? What are you going to say to the pilot? Like, this feeling of like, now I need to be in charge and now I need to take control of this whole situation. And then interestingly enough, after several moments of the kids asking, is he dead, and not getting a straight answer, once he's in private, Kendall asks Frank, and Frank eventually gets to, actually confirming for him, like, yeah, I think he's gone. And Kendall cries. And I thought that was a really poignant moment, given that, like I said, he had said earlier that he can't forgive him, which I don't know if he believed that he was dead at that time. Maybe he would have. But, and then Tom was consistently stopping short of saying that Logan was dead. So they were still kind of like, I think in all of them, but particularly in this scene with Kendall, there was still that kind of belief that Logan would be okay. So I think when you have that, I can't forgive you, he's still in the back of his mind, probably feeling like things might play out a certain way. So when Frank confirms that he's actually dead and Kendall actually cries, and you couple that with the fact that Tom never, I don't know, I'm not gonna say never, but because I'm not 100% certain he never got around to saying it, but Tom did consistently stop short of, yes, I think Logan is dead. So all that stuff combined made Kendall's tearful kind of acceptance really poignant. And I also liked how much of an exception Kendall took to the term estranged being used to describe them as well. Because that's very much what it was. But like the fact that it's like, I don't want it to look that way, I thought was an interesting thing from Kendall too. And also talking about not wanting it to look a certain way, I like how once Kendall got into business mode, he made a really great point. He's like, everything that we do on this day is going to be of historical record. So he put it out there like we should keep that in mind and be intentional with every decision that we make. And I thought that was a shocking amount of level-headedness and good thinking from Kendall in that moment. You know, there's a guy whose dad has treated him like shit for the entirety of this show, and who openly says in his final words to his father that he can't forgive him. But he makes a, I thought that was a really smart, not decision to make, but a really smart thing to point out. And then at the end of the day, he still cries. His eyes still well up, because at the end of the day, that's his dad, man. And like, we know that Kendall really valued Logan's acceptance of him. It was his perception. Logan's perception of him was important to Kendall. So like, I thought they handled Kendall's reaction to this in a way that felt true to Kendall. And then the show, you know, made a decision to have Shiv separate at the time that they find out this information. I mean, she could have been first if she had answered her fucking phone, but whatever. They have to bring her in separate to deliver the news, and they do the same thing with Connor. And Shiv gets also kind of like very quickly, why didn't you tell me sooner type shit, as if that matters. And I just thought that was interesting, because if you weren't being petty about the time shit, you would have literally been the first person to find out. And then Roman's clearly very fucking delusional this whole time. I thought that was great. His complete insistence on, we don't know if he's dead or not. And really, the only reason that's there is because they're such assholes that no one who can confirm that he is in fact dying has the balls to say it to them, because these people are such assholes to them. So they're so accustomed to like delivering bad news with a very soft hand, because they don't want to get chewed out or fired over something dumb. So now when Roman could use that honesty so he could get that closure, no one's fucking giving it to him, and this means the most to Roman. So Roman's completely fucking delusional about the reality of things. And him not being able to do the phone conversation, I thought was a great moment for the actor, for Kieran Culkin. How he starts talking, he's like, I just can't fucking do this, and he gives the phone to Kendall. I thought that was a great moment for him. Another reaction I thought was interesting was Tom. At one point, Tom says, I guess we're off the clock, which I thought was a wild thing to say. And then Tom later is like crying, and when he's telling Greg, and he's like, I lost my protector and all this kind of shit. But then he also asked Greg to like delete stuff from like a logistics folder on his computer. So it's like, I feel like there's a level of mourning to Tom, but also like, is Tom making a play too? Like, is Tom preparing for like, okay, this is the move that I need to make? And so like, the way all of these people are kind of like, this is terrible, but I need to be prepared right now because I got to get ahead of it. I got to get ahead of the other people who are going to get ahead of it. The fact that it's still a competitive business shit, crazy. Carolina goes into business mode. Not only does she want to start drafting a statement, but she has no hesitation in not allowing Carrie to be present for it. Logan's body was, again, still warm, and they were very much like, now that he's gone, there's really no reason for you to be here, so you get the fuck out, Carrie. I thought that was interesting, especially her reaction to it. She looked like she was not altogether there. So that was interesting. But I want to close out this portion of the video, because I do still have thoughts, with my award for the most interesting response, which goes to Roman. They task Roman with telling Matsson about Logan. And Roman goes into a room on this yacht to call Matsson, and Jerry is in that room alone. And he kicks her out, and he's like, I need to make a phone call in here. But as she's leaving, he kind of like, he talks about like, oh, I'm really sad right now. Like, oh, this sucks. I'm really sad, and I don't really know. I'm depressed. And I don't know about you guys, but that came off to me like he was trying to like angle for some like pity sexual shit. Like if she had said, like, how can I help you feel better? He would have made it a sex thing. And I thought that was why, like, again, maybe I read too much into it, but I thought it was wild for him to kind of like maybe sort of angle for a sexual thing in that moment, especially given the fact he just fired her. So like, not only do I want you to do some sexual type shit to help me feel better about my dead father, I want you to do it 20 minutes after I fired you. How about that? So like, Roman gets the award for wildest reaction. But again, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you didn't think that he was angling for a sex thing. But to me, I feel like if she had been receptive, he would have like had her do some sex shit. Wow, this has been a long video. Of course, I got to give one of my longest videos to Logan Roy's memory. So of course it's gonna be a long one, but I'm almost done. So closing out with some thoughts. Last words to Logan. Something to think about. What was the last thing each of the kids said to him? And this is me posing this as a kind of like an open question to you guys. Like, think about some of the stuff that they said, and think about if you think that that's gonna have an impact as the show and the season closes. Like, in this episode, the last thing Roman said to him was the voicemail about, like, are you being a cunt right now? Like, that's the last thing Roman said to him. So how's Roman going to deal with that? Everybody else's last interaction with him was probably in the karaoke scene. So, and then think about that. How much heavier is that going to weigh on them? Logan's line of, I love you, but you're not serious people. Like, what, like, that look, I don't know for sure because I haven't done the literal research, but that might be the last thing that he said to Shiv, Connor, and Kendall. Like that's gonna really loom large now if that's the last thing he said, as well as his half-ass attempt at reconciling with them. I said last week in the video, like, how real do you think that was? Like, do you think he was being genuine? Whether he was being genuine or not is irrelevant now because he tried something, and now they got to live with the fact that from their perspective, they don't know where his heart was at. He did put some sort of half-assed effort into reconciling with them, and they spit in his face, and now he's dead. So now they got to live with that. I think that's not pretty cool, but I think it's cool in the sense of like, where does this story go? That'd be something they could play with in these remaining 7 episodes. I thought the explanation for the term loony cake, I thought was really sad. I loved how the actress who played Willa, I think, was very clearly trying to hold in joy at finding out about what happened. Like, when Connor says, like, I don't know, maybe we should just call it off, she's like, no, I don't know, maybe if that's what you think is right. Like, she can barely contain her joy at this situation. And I thought that is so good. I loved what she was doing in that moment. Great stuff from that actress. I'm sorry if you're not watching this, but if you are, I'm sorry I don't remember your name right now. I do try to do good with names, but sometimes I just can't, and it's one of those times. Kendall said, we can do a funeral off the rack. That was probably the wildest line of the episode to me. He basically compared a low-key funeral to buying a cheap suit. Like, it's crazy to me, but that is pure Kendall for sure. And then Carolina says the news has gotten out and they wonder how. I think all signs point to Greg on that one. He had the girlfriend in episode 1 or 2 that he took to Logan's, it was a birthday party, whatever, for Logan. And she was the one who was like posted on Instagram and they kicked her out and all that kind of shit. Maybe Greg texted her that same shit. She ran her mouth and now it's out. And then lastly, Shiv made a comment to Tom. I can't remember the context, but it was something about coordinating with Logan. And she immediately apologized for saying it. But I also think it was pure Shiv to bring up her and Tom's personal shit in that moment. Like, you would think in the moment of like, hey, I'm conveying to you the news of your father dying, that maybe she would skip an opportunity to poke at him about the divorce shit and how Logan helped him with the lawyer and all that kind of shit. But she didn't skip the opportunity, but immediately apologized because she knew how classless that was. And I thought that was interesting that she did that. Also in concert with the fact that she started to go, like, after she got the phone, she goes to hug him. She lets him hold her for a minute before she realizes she's a piece of shit and is like, oh, wait, I'm a piece of shit. I can't do this. And walks away. But then she does end up leaving with him, I believe, at the end. So, like, I don't know. There's so many different and interesting things they set up for different, for fallout from this that, I mean, I think we're all going to be really tuned in for episode 4 to see what happens. So I hope I covered everything. 43 minutes. This is the longest I've gone so far, probably on a video ever. I think I might have done, I know I've done 40 plus minutes, I think maybe twice, but it doesn't happen often. And I think it's a proper ode to Logan Roy, Brian Cox, this show, the talent on this show, the work on this show, how great it's been. My useless and fucking utterly meaningless tribute to everything that they've done, and to pull off a colossal, monumental, incredible episode of television like this. I guess my shout out, my way of showing my love is like, hey, I did my longest video talking about it. So that's my contribution to the Succession zeitgeist, is that my contribution is I loved it so much, and I paid my respects to the tune of 45 minutes of talking about it. So that's all I got. I will see you guys next week, episode 4. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what you thought about the questions that I posed, all the stuff all the cool shit that could happen. How you felt about the episode. Do you think that it worked for you in the same way it worked for me for the reasons that I cited? Let me know what you think. I'll try to respond to as many as I can, and I will see you guys next week for episode 4. Until then, peace.